Hi YouTube, it's Kathy, and this is my weekly entertainment wrap-up for September 6th through 12th. This week I read 2 books, watched 8 shows, watched 2 movies, and listened to 2 books. First this week I finished a reread of The Diviners by Libba Bray. This is the first in the Diviners quadrilogy. It is a finished series. I really enjoyed it. I have consumed the entire series before, but I listened to them as audiobooks, and this time I wanted to go through it with my eyes just to see if I can pick up anything more from actually seeing the text. If you're not familiar with this series, it's set in 1926 and it follows a series of people who are in and around New York City. However, it does start out with our heroine Evie O'Neill getting kicked out of her small town in Ohio for doing something that nobody really understands, but for some reason it's her fault. As we see these different point of view characters either come together or perish, we find out that this is a world where there are certain powers, many of our characters have them, and they have to band together to fight the big bad. I really like this series. It's a lot of fun. It's great historical fiction. I'm reading all of the voices of the characters in the same way that I heard them when I listened to January LaVoy do the narration, so that's a fun way to revisit it. And if it weren't for the fact that I read it for Demonathon, I'd pick up the second in the series, but I have other books to read for Demonathon, so it's going to have to wait. A book that just slipped into my reading week that had nothing to do with my Demonathon TBR is The Roommate. This comes out on Tuesday. If you're a fan of contemporary romance and or smut, you're going to want to pick this one up. It was delightful. Our main character finishes a doctorate and moves from the East Coast to the West Coast to move in with a friend that she's had since high school that she's been crushing on since high school. However, as soon as she shows up, he's like, yeah, so my band got a last-minute gig and I'm actually going to be away for the entire summer, but I've rented out my room to someone else. He seems cool, it should be fine. This means that our main character is not only disappointed in the fact that the guy that she thought she was going to finally get together with is away for 3 months, but now she has this total stranger to contend with. Within the first 2 chapters, we find out that he has an interesting occupation, and if you don't want to be ruined as to what it is, mute this for a second. He is an adult entertainer. He is a porn star, if you will. I recently saw DJ talking about this book on Instagram and I went, wait a second, I have an arc of that, why haven't I read it yet? And I read it in basically a single day. It's incredibly sexy. Somebody has come up with the term raunch-com, and that's exactly what this is, and I highly, highly enjoyed it. It actually affected which movies I watched this week, but we'll wait to get to those because first we do TV shows. First TV show I watched this week is The Great Canadian Baking Show. We finished the first season and then watched all of the second season while eating cake that we picked up at the grocery store because why not? Even though there's another season of that, we moved on to watching the first couple of episodes of Crazy Delicious, and although I'm not a fan of the title of the show, the concept of the show is really cool. I love cooking competitions. These ones are very interesting, and I just like watching the Food Network like I would watch the Food Network all the time, so shows like this on Netflix are perfect for me. After that, because my roommate was watching it before we would get around to watching something that we were going to watch together, I watched the very last episode of Lucifer, completely out of context because I've never seen this show before. And I wonder if the show is as cheesy as it seems if you've been watching from the beginning, or if it's the fact that I was completely out of context and my roommate had to be like, this person is this, this is this, this is this, that made it have that more cheesy atmosphere. So if you've watched the show before, let me know. I'm not saying I didn't like it, I'm just saying, wow, okay, this show is kind of cheesy, which I didn't expect from DC because they tend to be like dark and broody. The show I was waiting to watch obviously was Scandal. We watched a few episodes of that. We're into the 7th season now, so this is the very last season, and funnily enough, we ended up watching things this week that showed not only Olivia Pope's mom, but Olivia Pope's dad. And I will get to those. It was fun to see both of them in different things throughout the week besides Scandal. I also watched 4 more episodes of Pose from the 2nd season. Of course, if you have Billy Porter in the cast, you have to do singing episodes. Not completely singing episodes, but episodes that involve singing, and that was just wonderful. Obviously, there's a lot of talent in this show, and there's a lot going on politically in the show, and it's just so intriguing. There was also an episode kind of based around Dorian Corey, who, if you've watched Paris is Burning, is a queen that appeared in that, and it was found out after she died that she had had a corpse in one of her trunks in her house for a very long time. Something like that situation happens in one of these episodes, and I found that super interesting, especially because there was a B plot line, and both of those plot lines were perfectly encapsulated by a quote from Dorian Corey at the end of the episode, which was just so interesting to see. We also watched a couple more episodes of Ozark. We're taking it slow because Chad can really only handle 2 episodes at a time, and after this we're going to have to choose something else to watch because there's only 3 seasons, so we're gonna figure it out. Because we need light things in our life, we obviously watched a few more episodes of Parks and Rec. We're into the 5th season, so we're progressing through it rather quickly, and we're, again, going to have to find more funny things to watch. Speaking of which, however, we come to another funny show that had one of the Pope parents in it, and that's Candy Alexander and Newsradio. I remarked last week that I started watching this with my roommate and that it is very funny. I love that Candy Alexander is in it, and there was a moment with her, because you don't get to see her character very often, but there was a moment with her where you saw a little bit of deviousness that you definitely see on Scandal, so I loved seeing that. The 2 movies we watched this week are the 2 movies that also had Joe Morton in them, which is the man that plays Olivia Pope's dad on Scandal, and that is Speed and Speed 2 Cruise Control. The reason we ended up watching Speed is because when I read The Roommate, the main character's favorite movie is Speed. She absolutely loves action movies. And upon reading that book, I was like, you know what? I haven't seen that movie since I was a kid. I should see if I can get the roommates to watch it with me. So when I finished the book, I was like, hey guys, can we watch Speed? And we did. I forgot all of the opening setup to it. Like, all I remembered was the bus, and the bus cannot slow down, and that's all I remembered. I didn't remember who was in the cast, because when I watched it, let's be honest, I probably didn't know who any of the people were. And it's funny because the protagonist of The Roommate has just decided that Speed 2 does not exist because she knows that Keanu Reeves is not in the second one, so why would she want to watch it? And there were some interesting choices made in Speed 2. Drew's whole storyline was interesting to me because at first I was like, hey, some disability rep. What's with people putting deaf people on boats? Because that's something I've seen a bunch in literature and is also in Speed 2. But then her character, ooh, was, yeah, no. Her being 14 and hitting on the male lead and being like, I'm going to be 15 next month was just... did not need to be in this movie. That's all I can say. The first book I listened to this week was Darius the Great Deserves Better. This is the follow-up to Darius the Great Is Not Okay. I really liked both of these books. The first book, I felt it was very subtle when you find out that Darius is coming out. Like, I got to the end of the book and didn't even really understand that that is what had happened. It seemed pretty open-ended to me, so I'm really glad that we got this follow-up. I would protect Darius with my life. He absolutely deserves better. In this book, he is dating a boy who works at the same tea shop that he works at, and that is going really well. He gets along with his family really well. He's very nice. They like to cook together. They obviously both like tea. But then there's this boy on his soccer team that he has a crush on, but he figures it will never be interested in him because why would he be? And also he thinks that he's straight, so who knows? This is a lot about Darius figuring out his feelings between these 2 boys, what's going on in his family at the time because his little sister is being bullied by racists at her school, his dad is going through another depressive episode, his mom is working really long hours, and then his grandma and his Oma come for a very long visit to stay and help out while Stephen Kellner is away, and then Darius has these moments of wanting to bond with his grandmothers because they're all in the queer spectrum, but he doesn't really know how to bond with them, which is hard because he spent the previous summer bonding with his grandma and grandpa on his mother's side. There's also things going on with Sarab, his best friend, half a world away. There's a lot going on in Darius's life, and I absolutely loved this book. There's mental health rep, there's fat rep, there's queer rep of multiple types, there's talks of racism. Like, this book has a lot and I just adore it. The other book I listened to was really quick. It was Convenience Store Woman. This is translated from Japanese and it's only about a 3-hour audiobook, so I actually just sat there playing a game on my phone and listened to it yesterday. This book is about a woman who is perfectly content to work in a convenience store part-time, and everyone in her life seems to take offense of that. There's lots of talk in this about how either you should have a good job or you should be having a family, and she doesn't have either in the eyes of society and what that means. There are a lot of layers to this that I don't feel like I'm going to completely be able to peel back, especially because my legs are falling asleep right now and I don't know if I am going to be able to have the mental capacity to peel back all of the layers of this. But the main character is set in her way. She is very good at her job, and her job also suits her. Her job makes sense to her, and she mimics the speech patterns of people around her and feels that she is an amalgam of the people and situations around her, and that is very fascinating to read. Eventually she gets this coworker who I quite personally would want to punch in the nuts because he is a piece of work who just continually puts down the job and talks about how things are terrible for men because of all these expectations and that people are living in the Stone Age, and he rants a lot, and I just... Things take a little bit of a turn with those two characters that I was not expecting to see, but I really enjoyed how this resolved because I was having some grave concerns about this person's safety and welfare and happiness and all of those things. That may be incredibly vague, but I can't feel my foot anymore, so I'm going to wrap this up. Have you read, watched, or listened to any of these? Let me know about it down in the comments below. On the way down to the comments, if you hit that subscribe button, that would be very nice of you. If you don't feel like leaving a comment but want to make sure that I know you are here, just leave me an emoji or a smiley face if you're on your keyboard. Some people have asked if there's a way to financially support this channel, so I recently set up a Ko-fi account, which is a digital tipping service. The link to that is down below, as well as my PayPal and my Amazon wishlist in case you would like to buy me a book. You can like and share this as you see fit, and I will see you very soon. Bye!